What is up, guys? So tonight I'm having a little bit of trouble silencing my mind to be able to sleep. I guess focus on going to sleep. And then I remembered the drama that unfolded about a month and a half ago with bigger creators on this platform with regards to offensive content that they have put in the past. And I vividly remember that I got curious and I watched the Jenna Marbles apology video. And I only did so because I was watching her for a while back when YouTube was starting to become extra cool for me. This was around 2013, late 2012 and 2013. That's when I began to use YouTube more as a tool for learning, given that I had just finished some stuff with school and I thought, how can I continue to hone my skills when I know that these classes will never be available to me again? So that's how I started using YouTube as a tool, in case you don't know what that means. But I revisited the Jenna Marbles apology video a few minutes ago in the form of someone sort of watching it and also analyzing her body language and tone to see if it aligns with what someone who's genuinely apologetic would be like. And I remember that when I watched the video for the first time, the original video for the first time, I was intrigued on the matter of offending people. And Jenna said something about how she was getting rid of some of her content because she just really did not want to offend anybody. And the thing of it is, as good of an intention as that is, as wonderful as that is, as amazing as that is, and honorable and respectable, I couldn't help but feel some type of way about it. And it's not because I feel like every single human being in life is condemned to fail at that. But for me personally, I believe that it is impossible to do something, say something, engage in something, create something, draw something even, that will not offend somebody. And that is because there are so many of us walking in this planet, so many different opinions, so many different tastes, preferences, and backgrounds, abilities to interpret information. And I'm sure this has happened to all of you out there. You have a perfectly fine conversation with someone, and you think that what you're telling to someone is being interpreted in the manner that you believe you're delivering it to be interpreted, but somehow this person can look at what you are saying entirely different. And there is nothing wrong with that. That is actually beauty. That is actually a work of art on its own. If we all thought the same, I don't think we would be able to advance very much in this society. But I have always wondered if it is possible for you to be a human being who is absolutely, completely immune to saying something that offends someone. Of course, you can actively pursue offending people by saying things that are commonly agreed upon to be offensive. But with the stuff that Jenna did in her past, at the time that I was watching it, say 2013, when I remember actively doing a marathon of her videos that were more contemporary for those days. Um, I remember watching the Nicki Minaj video. I remember watching all of the what boys do, what girls do videos. And I thought that was very creative. I thought that was so freaking cool because I have thought the same things. I have wondered the same things. When it comes to boys, I have wondered the same stuff. I have imitated the same stuff, like sagging pants and pretending that I have a mustache and stuff like that. I haven't watched those videos since a long time ago, so I vaguely remember them now. But I remember the emotion that I felt when I watched those videos, which was, wow, this girl speaks my thoughts. And I am very grateful for it. I felt like I had found a friend online who I will never get to meet, never get to talk to in person, but reflects my thoughts very well. So at the time, I wasn't thinking, oh, this person is totally trying to do a portrayal of something that we associate with an attack on a group of people, uh, be it artistic choices with the kind of color that you apply to your skin based on your original skin color. And there's also the stuff about people's identity and different genders and stuff. And what can I say? At the time when I was watching that stuff, I guess the topic was not something that I felt I was bombarded with quite as constantly as I am bombarded with it in the present. Especially, I feel like this stuff gained some real momentum back when same sex marriages became legalized. There's no denial that it did what it was meant to do, which was give equal rights to marry for a number of people, a certain group of people, like the LGBT community. And in addition to that, because of that, that is a form of empowerment. So now we are going to have more open conversations about those folks, and we get to hear more what they're saying, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. They have gained a more confident platform. But now it's strange to me that that is the present, and stuff from the past I have to look at differently because of what's going on in the present. And that leaves me particularly confused. Why is it bad for me to genuinely have enjoyed Jenna Marbles putting out videos about boys and girls and boys versus girls and stuff when that stuff was appealing to me? Am I a bad person for agreeing with that type of content, being entertained by that kind of content, by feeling comfortable with that kind of content? It kind of creates a conflict in my brain now. I feel like the stuff that was put in the past is something that is just a product of its time, but it doesn't mean that it's inferior content. Like, after you have learned from that time, that's it. You achieved what was meant to be achieved, which is life is a cycle of never ending lessons. And the lessons come in various forms, shapes, languages, etc. But I just really think it's strange that now we all have to do homework and look at our past, look through our tweets, look through our videos, look through our photos that we have posted, and make sure that we delete that stuff. It's like we are trying to delete history. is that something we actively actually want? Like, let's say that learning about learning about abortion offends you. Let's say that terminating babies that aren't born lives is just something that you're particularly sensitive about. Should we go back and delete every single article, every single discussion we have ever had about that happening because someone out there is offended or hurt about how a human who is about to develop is being terminated? Or let's pick more political topics. Do we really want to go back and say, well, the stuff with Germany during World War II, it was incredibly terrible and vile and, you know, some of the worst things that have happened in history. And there's a lot of things that have happened in history that are super bad. But that's one of the more notorious ones, I guess. Should we go back and get rid of those things? Because we know that there were victims during that time experiencing highly offensive and hurtful stuff. But in the present, looking back, that content is offensive to some people. So we need to go back and undo it. And I know that somebody out there is going to say that I am missing the point or swaying from it, but I just want you to understand how I am arriving at the conclusion of I don't think people should feel tormented by their pasts, and what they create today in the future is going to be the past. How would you know that something you're stating today will be offensive in the future when it hasn't been defined as offensive yet? It's like ex post facto laws. You cannot be accused and charged with a crime that at the time that you committed it was not a crime. But now in the future, since it's a crime, you are going to be punished for it. Everyone ever would be in jail for that reason. But that's what I'm trying to say. How do we avoid for our past to turn into one of those situations where you create your history, you are a product of your time, you're just not really thinking about the consequences that it could have, because those consequences do not quite exist at the time that you're producing this piece of history, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I'll be glad to revisit this topic at another time, perhaps with more compelling examples. But it really stood out to me that we are trying to, I guess, polish ourselves in a way that may not be achievable. I don't think that you being perfect at not offending someone is something that's achievable. I know that there are topics that I have discussed on this channel that can be very messed up. Like the other day, was it yesterday? I insulted someone over the side of the road that they were in and how they did a gesture to me and they gave me an attitude telling me to move over. And then I said something like, well, judging by what you're driving and the shape that it's in, you probably aren't in a good position to be acting up and getting yourself in trouble that would deepen your struggle. But that could offend someone because someone may look at that as, oh, she's saying that she's better than anyone else or than everyone else because she happens to be driving a car that's still pretty conserved, still pretty well put together. No major repairs have happened, and I know that they're coming. But what I am trying to say with that is that there are some people who are performing certain actions that may aggravate the status that they possess in life. And that is something pretty dangerous. Because if you're not in a very good position to be replacing things in your life that clearly need replacement, because this vehicle that you were on was not reliable given the noises that it had going on, and the telltale signs that a vehicle will give out any minute, and it's pretty much holding by threads and tape and stuff, then clearly you have not prioritized replacing that in your life or upgrading it, which means that there's probably something that is hindering you from achieving that. And while you go out and look for trouble, if you were to get into trouble, now you do not have the resources to pull yourself out of that trouble with something as essential as your personal transportation. Do not treat driving like it's a joke. Every time you sit on that seat, anything can happen any moment that will change your life forever or for a long time. It can change you physically. It can change you financially. So that's what I am saying with my commentary. Be very careful about what you do, because you clearly appear to be in a difficult position. And a lot of us in this country, it's safe to say, are, given the current state that we're living in. So I was actually the victim. I was her victim. I should have gotten offended that she was telling me that I was invading her lane when I wasn't. When I was invading her, like, her side of the... She pretty much wanted the whole fucking street to herself. The whole fucking road. She wanted it to herself. That could have offended me. But I said, you know what? This is just some crazy person. Just ignore her. That's the best way to deal with people like this. Ignore them. So why is it that when we encounter something that offends us, just because it offends us, it doesn't mean it's something that's actively keeping you from living safely, like from fulfilling your tasks, getting stuff done. Because let me put it this way: if I were to live my life depressed over the things that have been said to me and the things that happened to me, and the numerous offensive comments I have received on the channel pertaining to my, I guess, color of my skin, my race, or my accent, whatever the hell it is that you all involved in this have insulted me for. If I let that rob me of my sleep, I wouldn't be alive. So why is it that we like to think the worst about a person based on what they happen to do that may mirror a behavior that is associated with actively offending someone? How can you guarantee that you will never offend someone? So that's what I wonder about Jenna when she says that she cannot exist on the platform because she feels like she doesn't want to ever hurt anybody. What was she doing in more recent times that I could see? Like, she was posting more videos about her dogs and stuff. Where could something potentially offensive come up there? And people are going as far as saying that their pets don't have genders or sexes. Like, they go like, oh, my dog is not a he or she, it's a they or something. I think that is extreme in my mind. For I don't think that dogs and cats and all that stuff, all those animals are going around discussing gender politics like we are. But if that's what you want to do, fine, go ahead. But I would like to know that if I notice that your dog is male and I refer to him as a he, that you do not feel offended that that's what I'm addressing your pet as, when that is just what we have predetermined in our language to utilize to describe the traits that make this individual with this physical appearance different. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like times like these, it's a time where there's a lot of deception, confusion, manipulation, and I just sometimes I have the toughest time getting my mind together to express these things. Like, this is definitely not my most straightforward stream right now, because I'm trying to see that, think that way, think in a let me ensure that I will never offend anybody. But I accepted that anything that I say can be twisted into any kind of interpretation. Just like I have a discussion with a friend of mine about how sometimes I troll him, and he says, "You're going to twist my words into the worst possible interpretation, aren't you?" And I say, "Heck yeah, because I'm messing with you, I'm trolling you." But I feel like present day feels like a massive troll on people of all ages and backgrounds, and I don't know. That's what I think. So anyways, hopefully you guys take something away from this. You see where I'm coming from. You understand my question and my concern. And honestly, when I sit here, prior to me deciding what I will film about, I'm not thinking, what can I say to sound like an asshole? What can I say to offend people? What can I say today that in the future will be unearthed and someone will just try to drag me for it? Not at all. And I would hope that most people who come on the platform and produce content think that way as well. And any offenses that do take place happen to be a misalignment of the audience's culture and values and opinions just being incompatible. And therefore, in their minds, they interpret the content entirely different, and they find it offensive because, again, it's a simple misalignment, a lamentable misalignment, put it that way. This person might have clicked on this video because the title made them believe that it was going to be something, but it was not what they were expecting. And because it did not fulfill their expectations, they are in the shocked state. And as opposed to just clicking away and moving on, for some reason, they decide to voice the fact that this is something that offended them. To me, for the longest time, topics about intimacy, like physical intimacy, were something that made me very uncomfortable. And it was simply because it's something that I was always told that I must postpone until I mature physically and mentally. And I am very grateful that I was guided in that manner, because now I have nothing to regret, and I am very confident with the matter, because I feel like I was thrown into it at my recommended time. But I feel like the internet, day after day, is looking more like a place that we're trying to filter so much stuff, and it's just not possible. And I think that I don't want to say that we need to dismiss the people who get offended. I just think that tolerance must be built. I'm not saying we have to tolerate offensive people, like you actively bullying someone physically, emotionally, mentally. That has no place anywhere. But what I am trying to say is that when you do encounter that stuff, because unfortunately it is something that exists in human nature. It is possible for that to happen, and that's why it does happen. When you do encounter it, do not enter a state of shock, and be able to face it, be able to tolerate the discomfort long enough to carry on with your life. There is a lot of stuff out there that I don't like to deal with. I do not like to deal with people who are upset. I don't like to deal with people who are rude and yell and don't say thank you and all that stuff. But I have built a tolerance for it enough to where I don't use that as an opportunity to have a confrontation with someone. So I'm not saying that I think offensive content should be actively produced. If you produce something and it ends up offending someone when your intent was not to offend, I don't think there's anything wrong with you there. It is nice to be told why that offended someone, so that you can have a window at a different soul and be like, oh wow, I would have never thought about that independently. Thank you for introducing me to this way of looking at something. I can see why it offended you. But we cannot pretend to be police about everything when your individual capacity may not ever be sufficient enough to guarantee that you will never offend anybody. So anyways, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up here for... I was pretty much about to do another massive circle around the point, but it's something that's worth exploring. It's worth discussing. You guys let me know if you have ever seen something online, a video perhaps made by someone that absolutely offended you. And yeah, let's take it from there. I personally cannot think of a time I felt offended by a video. I think the only time I feel offended by a video is if it's in the political realm and say the discussion about who deserves to get stimulus checks, or when they say that the people who are on unemployment currently, they're going to have their money slashed. I feel a little offended with the phrase of, well, we need to cut back on how much money we give to these people because it takes away the incentive for them to work. Like, sure, I definitely enjoy living a life in which I make $400. Nobody says that. Nobody feels that. Nobody thinks that. And the uncertainty of it, which is I can have this taken away from me at any time for any reason, and I cannot combat it at all. I definitely love that to the point that it discourages me from getting a job, right? A job that provides me with more stability and steadiness, and I can anticipate that I'll have work to come to and stuff. Please, that is offensive, because as hard as I work, the society and the community that I reside in is telling me that I am not deserving of a assistance, mediocre assistance, when something goes wrong, something that is absolutely not my fault and not the result of me making poor decisions that put me in a disadvantaged position. You know, that shit is offensive. That is an actual bully saying that. That is offensive. But just because that is offensive doesn't mean that it completely shuts down my nervous system. I just look at it as, this motherfucker is ignorant. This motherfucker is sitting on such a privileged seat, privileged throne, that they are completely sealed away in a bubble where they don't understand what it's like to have severely fewer resources than they do. So what I do is I just tell myself, I really thank God and the resources that my mother made available for me, that I ended up not being that ignorant and saying shit like that. Very grateful for it. But anyways, you guys, that's pretty much it from me. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon.